Students, Dipali Ingle welcomes you on behalf of Saraswat International Academy, Rata Vapi. I am your English teacher. Today, we will discuss about English syllabus and after that, we will discuss chapter 1, A Portrait of a Lady by Khushwant Singh, part 1. So, welcome students to higher secondary section. Today, I am going to give you a brief idea about English syllabus which will be coming in 11th standard. There are two books for you. First one is Hornbill, that is textbook in English for class 11th core course. In this there are 8 lessons and 5 poems. And second one is supplementary reader. The name of the book is Snapshots, in which there will be 8 lessons. Let's see which skills will be important for higher secondary section, and that are reading and writing. There will be change in reading, writing as well as the checking pattern. So now we will see about prose. Prose means lessons. In this we will cover question answers of the lessons, comprehension paragraph, word building, idioms and phrases. Means what? The meanings of idioms and phrases, and you will have to write sentences along with that. Next is poetry section. In this, question and answers, comprehension stanzas will be coming. Along with that, figures of speech and paraphrasing of the poem will be coming. Now, we will move to the most important section in English subject, that is grammar. In this, what we will see? Editing the passage means rectification of errors. Then fill in the blanks. Transformation of sentences. Here means do as directed. That is, you will be instructed or directed what you will have to do. Then next is change the voice. Active voice and passive voice. You have to change the sentence. If the sentence is in active voice, you have to change it into passive voice. And if the sentence is in passive voice, you have to change it into active voice. It is called as vice versa. Interchanging the sentences. Then next is interchange of simple, compound, complex sentence. You have to change the sentence as per the direction. Then affirmative and negative sentences. You will be changing affirmative to negative and negative to affirmative as per the direction. Then next is adding a question tag. Next, changing assertive sentences to interrogative sentence and vice versa. Next is exclamatory sentence, changing assertive to exclamatory and exclamatory to assertive. Degrees of comparison. There are 3 types of degrees: positive degree, comparative degree and superlative degree. And here interchanging of degrees will be there. Use of if and unless. Removal of to and use of to. Direct and indirect speech will be also there. And the next is punctuation section. A small paragraph will be given to you to insert punctuation marks and you have to rewrite that paragraph. Now we will move to the reading and writing skills. In this we will cover unseen passages, unseen stanzas of poem for comprehension and also note making report writing, speech writing, advertisement writing, letter writing. In letter writing, again formal and informal letter will be there. Then email writing, application for job, essay writing, and data interpretation. So we will learn all this topic in class 11th. I hope you got a brief idea about your syllabus and the different sections that we will cover in our syllabus. Now, let's move to the chapter A Portrait of a Lady by Khushwant Singh, Part 1. In this video, I will cover page number 3 and 5. While learning, please keep a textbook, notebook, and a pen with you so that you can note down the important meaning of phrases and word meanings. And at the end of this lesson, I will give you the PDF of about the word meanings of important words and phrases also. Let's learn about the author. Khushwant Singh. Khushwant Singh is an Indian author, lawyer, diplomat, journalist, and politician. His experience in the 1947 partition of India inspired him to write Train to Pakistan in 1956, which became his most well known novel. He has won the Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, and Punjab Ratan Award. In this chapter, he described his grandmother. So let's move on to the lesson. Students, what is the meaning of portrait? Portrait means a picture. Here, narrator is trying to give a paint portrait of his grandmother. And what is paint portrait? He had described his grandmother by using words. He had a very good relationship with his grandmother, and that is what he described it in this chapter. So let's read to the lesson. My grandmother, like everyone's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known to her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband, but that was hard to believe. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother, being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. He's saying Kushwant Singh is saying that, like everybody's grandmother, his grandmother also as an old lady, and she had wrinkled. Wrinkled means shrunk skin. दादी माँ जो होती है उनका उनका चेहरा पूरा झुर्रियों से भरा होता है and that is called as wrinkled face. He's telling that last 20 years I know her, she has been same old lady. And here one word is there, mantelpiece is there. What is mantelpiece? Space above the fireplace people usually having in the drawing room. And here one phrase is there. The thought was almost revolting. Means what? It was very hard for the author to believe that once his grandmother was young, pretty, and beautiful. She has been same old lady. when you see the old people, they have shrunk skin, that is, wrinkled face. He's telling that he is actually making fun of his grandmother. For him, it's very hard to believe because for 20 years he had been seeing her. She was looking very old and wrinkled face. And it was very hard to believe for him that once the grandmother was very young, pretty, and beautiful. And there in the hall, there in the drawing room, there was a picture of his grandfather hung in the drawing room. Grandfather wore a turban. What is turban? Turban is a cloth worn by the Sikh people, and his clothes were very loose, and grandfather had a long beard. He was looking very old, and it was also hard to believe that he had married and had children. He was not at all able to believe the fact that grandmother was once very young and pretty, and these children never believed whatever she said, and whatever she has told them. They like fables. And what are fables? Fables means stories, and absurd means illogical stories. And prophets means she always used to uh, the children always treated like the fables of the prophets. She used to tell us prophets. Here the meaning prophet means God. So she had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. No, we were certain she had always been, as we had known her, old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. She hobbled about the house in spotless white with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop and the other telling the beads of the rosary. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. Now, Khushwant Singh, the author, is describing her physical features. We already know that she was looking very old and her skin were full of wrinkles. You could see wrinkles everywhere on her body. It was very difficult for him to believe that once she was young and pretty. And he is saying that his grandmother is looking same as 20 years. Here, hobbled means walking in pain. As we knew that grandmother was very old, she must be walking in pain. And stoop means bending forward. जो बूढ़े लोग होते हैं वो थोड़ा झुक के चलते हैं. And she was telling the beads of the rosary means jap करने की माला. She used to keep always that beads of rosary in her hand. And silver locks means hair, and pale means dull, and puckered means wrinkled face. Here, one more phrase is there, an expansion of pure white serenity. What means? It refers to calm, peaceful, and serene character and conduct of the author's grandmother. About the author's grandmother. And contentment means satisfaction. She used to walk in an awkward manner, means she was must be having pain in the house, in so that she always moving in a awkward manner. Her clothes were always white and there is not even one spot of dirt on it. She used to always do praying. Her hair was silver in color and her lips were always moving because she was always telling the prayer. And she was very old, so it was difficult her to move in the house. And here He described it. So the look, how was the look of the grandmother? So the look and feel of the grandmother was very beautiful for him. And when you look at her, you feel there is a white landscape that you see on the mountains. He is comparing that to the grandmother. So he is telling that if you look at the grandmother, she was only showing peace and calmness everywhere. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song. Monotonous means what? In a same tone. While she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. I listened because I loved her voice but never bothered to learn it. Then she would fetch my wooden stale, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk and tiny earthen ink pot and red pen, tie them in all a bundle and hand it to me. After a breakfast of thick stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. He says that both were good friends. Who are good friends? Author and his grandmother. Shared. He shared a very good relationship with his grandmother. He said that his parents worked in the city, and that's why grandmother used to take care of him, and he left with his grandmother in the village. So they were always together, and this helped him to build a very good relationship with her. And he was with his grandmother, and she was the one who used to wake him up, get him ready for the school, uh, and keep packing all his things. And as explained here, yellow plastered yellow chalk, tiny earthen ink pot, and red pen, wooden slate. All these are olden things which Kushwant Singh used to uh, in his childhood while going to school. Nowadays, you are using the things, notebook, textbooks, and your other things also. But these things were used by Kushwant Singh. And while making him ready, she used to keep singing the prayer, and it was in a monotonous. Monotonous means in the same tone. But her voice was so sweet, so he listened to it. We know that she was the one who was taking care of him and getting ready to school. So she could give him a nice bath and would also tide all his requirements, that is the slate, the ink pot, and the pen, etc. He used to eat chapatis. What kind of chapatis? It was thick and stale chapatis. Stale means leftover chapatis. And what kind of breakfast Khushwant Singh used to have? Stale chapatis. He used to eat with butter, sugar. And after breakfast, they both went to school. The grandmother used to accompany him to school. She always carried stale chapatis because she wanted to feed the village dogs. So she used to carry chapatis with her. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to temple. The priest taught us alphabet and the morning prayer, while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda, singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. Scriptures means holy books. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time, the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw them. So, why did the grandmother go along with him every day? Because the school was attached to the temple, and when the priest who taught uh, them alphabets and prayer. And while the children learning, the grandmother used to, what the grandmother used to do? She used to sit inside the temple and read the scriptures, that is, holy books. After the school was over, both them would go back to home. As they were going back, the village dogs were ready and waiting for them. Why were the village dogs waiting for them? Because they knew that she would always carry some stale chapatis for them. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point. What is turning point? A great change in our friendship. Although she shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the streets, and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. So, what happened after his parents were settled in the city? They wanted him to go back to the city. So that calling back to the city was the turning point, means great change that happened in their relationship and friendship. And whose friendship? The friendship between the grandmother and Khushwant Singh. So, what was the turning point mentioned here? The turning point, shifting over to the city in their relationship, was the turning point. Even after going to the city, they shared the same room. In the village, she used to accompany him to the school, but in the city, he used to go to the English school and by motor bus. So he's saying that in the city, there were he used to go alone and manage his things on his own, and there were no street dogs also. So what the grandma did, she started feeding the sparrows in the courtyard. And what is courtyard? It means a front space that is available in their city. So children, here uh, the next part we will see in video number 2. Thank you so much. In this video, I explain you about the English syllabus and the part 1. Now, the next we will see in the next part 2. After the video, you can refer the PDF for the word meanings and question answers at the end of this lesson. Thank you so much.